Good morning. So, I wanted to share this thought, this concept, but I don't know where to start and I don't know how it's going to go. So, I'll just say it and hope for the best. The concept, it's not yet fully, the image is not yet fully, visual in my mind. So, we'll see how it goes. Um, So there's a lot of talk, about relationships and what's going on with the West, feminism, woke. Inevitably, um, there's people who started, tackling this subject and wrote books about it and stuff. And I got a book about the occult around feminism. That one interested me a lot. Almost behind any movement there's an occult presence. So I bought that book and I found it very interesting. The book literally is called Occult Feminism, so you guys can check it out if you want. It's really, if you're interested in history and the occult, I mean, everything is there. Of course, you can immediately sense it was written from a Christian prism, so it has lots of connotations to Christianity. But you know, the importance is it's faithful to history. That's the importance. Anyway, that got me thinking. This subject after gathering gathering my opinion under by listening and reading to the subject. I was like, you know what, it seems to me that we've been living under a matriarchy for a long time, even though feminists claim down with the patriarchy. No, what you're asking for is female superiority and literally compare women to men, or women becoming men, which is ridiculous. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Only through the mind of someone sick that something would be, proposed. But we've been living under a matriarchy for a long time. In the beginning, as a nomad, I think it was a patriarchy under nomad because uh, there was no other choice. You see, women still today prefer strong, men, strong, tall men, because of that. Because the life of a nomad, a man was literally what stands between women and annihilation. It's men, protectors and providers, and living as a nomad, which I imagine it was almost like a predator following the herd, the sheep, the goat, the cow, the horse, the reindeer. I mean, still today there's nomads, in the Arctic, areas, the Eskimos, and they go about, following the herds, the reindeer. They move around and they just follow them. They are looking for food and they just follow them around, and they became quote unquote shepherds. A kind of a symbiosis is created because the animals, the reindeer, are knowledge are aware that men kind of protect them as well. They have dogs to protect them from wolves and etc. There's a certain cooperation that is formed, and I imagine it's the same thing with the nomad man who walked the earth. They usually call the nomad man as a collector, scavenger, and often they leave the part of apex predator behind. You see, in those natural documentaries, there's still a lion and leopard and other cats and everything. They just follow the buffalo or or the deers. They follow them around, as the season moves, the animals move, and there's this exodus of buffalo, for instance, from areas, and the gazelle, the cheetah. I'm sorry, the cheetah and the leopard and the lion actually follows them around. It's almost like like shepherds. So we follow around the herds the same way. We are apex predators after all. But that fact is not, I don't know, in the equation. When people think of humans, they don't see humans as apex predators. I mean, there's nothing in this world that scares us. Everybody's actually afraid of us, you know. So anyway, it was behind the strength of a man that women, you know, found protection, because absolutely that's what women seek. It's protection, all right. And because even though they are capable of hunting and fending for themselves, but when they are pregnant, they need not only protection but providing. Because once you're pregnant, and if you want to have the next generation to know this world, I mean, you have to stand still pretty much and don't do much, you know, effort. If you do effort, is if you do physical effort or stress, psychological stress, you can lose the child. You know, the body aborts automatically, because the body, I mean, the body will protect the woman first, and it will abort because to save, because there's going to be another time that she can get pregnant, right? So nature kind of chose that rhythm. So it kind of goes sometimes I wonder, do people know these details? That's why I'm so confused sometimes doing these audios. Do people know these details? Am I being tedious, or pontificating? Am I being rude, or am I being like a patron? What's the expression? Patronizing. Am I being chauvinistic? Am I being that? I don't know. Let's just continue. Sometimes I have these doubts, and anyway, let's continue. So so people was following a patriarchy during nomad times. Women had no other choice. We carried our house in our bags, and we it was through the strength of man and the protection of man that civilization, humanity actually survived. It was 100% patriarchy, and women had no other choice but to follow man's lead, I would suppose, right? It became a matriarchy when we settled. Although you can defend it's a matriarchy and a patriarchy at the same time, which I agree, because there's also a balance that has to be met. Yes, but I think as a nomad, it was more turned to men. It was more patriarchal. But as we became sedentary, this equilibrium maintained, of course, but it tipped a little bit towards the feminine side. And I will try to explain. Everything, always that I try to explain a concept, I'm trying to balance things out. I'm not trying to go into the extremes, although people think it's extreme. I'm just trying to balance things out, and sometimes you have to go places that might seem weird because people never thought about it. I'm not being extreme, although you know, for the mainstream, I might be extreme. Who knows? Then again, that's a whole subject. So when we got into sedentary lifestyle, that's when matriarchy start developing a bit more. Now we have to analyze a little bit men's archetype and women's archetype. You know, men build tools, right, and then defend themselves with these tools, like you know, weapons, all sorts of weapons, and that's how they defend their house. That's how they defend themselves. And in face of danger, they meet danger. They face danger. They don't run away from it unless you are a weak man or a effeminated man. But men, they don't run from danger. They face it. In fact, men would love to die in action, love to die, you know, listening to the lamentations of their enemies and, you know, smoking a cigar and, you know, all that stuff. That's how men would love to go. Women, on the other hand, they always seek safety. And when they think about how I want to go, well, how my perfect way to go would be, it's in quiet and safe place in tranquility. That's how they imagine. But men, no, men want to go out of this world in glory, so to speak. So men, whenever they are faced with some trouble, is either from other men or from other tribe or from other animals, they face it. Women, since they are, different, built differently, they don't fight that way. Women find ways around. Women like to destroy the reputation, for instance. They like to talk on the backs of people and raise, almost like smear campaigns to destroy reputation, to have someone do things for them. That's a thing that women also do, to put up someone else to do their bidding. They don't like to, face their enemies directly. They find ways to do it indirectly, similar to politicians when they use the law to go about, and destroying their political opponents. The law or the media, it's all about smear campaigns and destroying reputation. That's weak men, weak effeminated men that fight like that. It's a very important distinction. So when we got sedentary, we started building roots in houses, and the house is the temple of women. You see, even though it's men that own the house, you'll be lucky if you are allowed to have a shed so you can be yourself. You have to go provide, and once you return to the temple, to the hearth fire, you are under her rule. Yeah. So that's something most people don't think about. And that's how a city works. You see, when we were sedentary, it was men in command. Okay, men, they have this GPS in their heads. Men, when they go through a place, they memorize it. They form a map in their mind. And if they, for instance, drop an object in a place, later they can trace their place, they trace their tracks back to the objects. We form a map in our minds. That's why when you are in the hearth fire and you drop an object someplace, it will move, because women like to move things. They have a static completely different than ours. Although we are more practical and we put things and we mark it in our map, later when we need it, it's no longer there, and that really pisses me off, by the way. But women don't see the world like that. They are more into the aesthetic, the feng shui, how this looks, and how this looks. They're not practical sometimes. So that's why it was a patriarchy when we were nomad, but when we became sedentary, we stopped being nomad. It became a matriarchy. So, like I said, women like the feeling of safety in all situations. So men in the wild, when we were nomad, they built weapons and they defended themselves with those weapons. But as a sedentary, women started actually having afraid of weapons. So that's why in a feminized society, men are not allowed to walk around with weapons. Women like to have others do their work for them, so they came up with the concept of guards and police. And so men are not allowed to defend themselves. They have someone to do that work for them, because that's how women think, that's how women act. You understand? So if there's places on earth in which men can still walk around with weapons, that's a more patriarchal place. For instance, Canada, I think, is trying to remove all weapons. Again, it's going to a more effeminized, matriarchal, trying to declaw the apex predator. That's what it is. Declaw the apex predator, taking your weapons away. Indirectly, it also helps weak men that are in power, because weak men are extremely afraid of losing power, and they think by declawing, people, men, they will feel safer. Again, this idea of safety, it's either out of from women or from weak men. They will feel safer. The thing they fear the most is an uprising, and if men are equipped with pew pew weapons, I mean, that's how they probably can't sleep with that idea of an uprising. So declawing, the population is one of the objectives of these effeminate feminist states. Um, what else can I say this about this? All right, now I'm losing my train of thought. I should have taken notes because the thing when you go on tangents, you kind of sometimes lose your train of thought because of that. Actually, if I take notes, I can retrace my steps. Um, so the thing is, we are living in a matriarchy, right? But then there's this movement that claims we still live in a patriarchy and we need more power for the other opposite sex. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What they are trying to do is create a situation and actually they have absolute power. It's a power struggle. You see, they want even more power. It's a tyrannical situation. These types, these types came about. We can trace them in history till the French Revolution. They were around the French Revolution and they were kicked out of the French Revolution and then they took, refuge in UK. These types who were all about, female superiority. They distorted history, they distorted the facts, as usually these puzzling people do, in order to fit their narratives. They started with these narratives that women was oppressed and this and that, because, everything, including religion, publicity, marketing, everything is directed towards women, if you haven't noticed everything. And nowadays, politics is directed towards women as well, because women are 55% of humanity or even more. Yes, men are a minority, and if when women, became voters, which something they didn't want at all, you see, women was quite happy, as being the overlords of the hearthfire. And someone saw, we got to make them vote because they compose more. They are 50%, 55% of the population. We have to make them vote. And so the elite, wish was granted through lots of lies and deceit, of course. See, they distort reality in order, they distort the meaning of words and concepts to fit their narratives. From a matriarchal society, since, I don't know, since the French Revolution, which is a movement that was stopped actually during the First and Second World War. Eventually it was stopped because we needed lots of manpower to fight those wars, but the movement, gained back, was put back in out there after the Second World War. It's the sexual movement that everybody talks about. I wasn't born even yet, but it happened around the 60s. I would imagine that's when they introduced the contraception pill, which is actually a biochemical weapon. It's warfare, and it for the purpose of weaponizing women once more. Politics, politics, religion is also a very feminine, thing. Anyone that works in administration is very effeminated, a masculine person won't, a manly person won't do those jobs at all. There's cases where men, do all the work, do all the study to become, one of these per people who work in offices, and then they quit and they prefer to work as a loading at the docks, or working with their hands, or in building, or cleaning, even cleaning the streets and working as a garbage man, because the l'ambiance at work, it's so toxic because it's mainly a feminine working place. There's nothing more dangerous in this world than a weak, effeminated man. That's something I've heard during the lockdowns, and it's true. They have they don't stand their ground, you see. And so anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought again. Um, I have to take notes about this. So I was talking about. how religion is also directed towards women. Although you only see man priests because they have to be not married. Because when a man is not married or practice celibacy, he becomes more intense and more attractive, and that's why men had to be, single. Priests, I mean, have to be single, and because they would become more, attractive to women. A woman knows when a man is carrying a loaded gun, so to speak. When you haven't ejaculated for a long time, there's this, intensity, and women are quite attracted to that, and that's why they practice that. That's a little secret I probably didn't know, right? When you shoot, when you empty your clip, women feel it. They feel it. But so practicing semen retention pretty much will attract females towards you. See, they are attracted to the intensity. Um, you'll see there the behavior totally changes, and it's a thing that we don't realize because our body or our perception tells us, okay, it's fine, everything is fine, but slight things, that change slightly, and you don't even realize it. That's the thing when you are, for instance, depressed. You don't know you're depressed, but other people know you're depressed because they feel it. But your body, yourself, the whole thing that encapsulates yourself will tell, yeah, it's fine. I mean, you're not dying, you're not in pain. It goes. The body also almost accommodates, and it's not critical, so it's fine. So when it's soft, something soft or unimportant, the body will always tell you, oh, it's fine, everything's fine. No, it's not. You are actually extremely depressed. And it goes with the same thing with the unloading your clip. When your clip is loaded, you have a different vivacité, how do you say that? Different life force about you, and that's very attractive. And people notice it. But when you unload your clip, and I mean, a girlfriend once told me that, what's wrong with you? Yesterday you were so, full of woof, and today you're like, somber and quiet. And I'm like, yeah, I unloaded my clip. What are you talking about? That's uh, something, these small details that change people's perceptions. It's feeling, understanding the the nuances, the little difference, the nuances that change everything. Most people can't pick these things up, and really annoys me. So, so religion was directed towards women, 100%. In church, women were in the front. Yeah, women fight. Even in school, they would fight for the front places, and women are in the front places in church. They love that ceremony, that ritual of calmness, of safety. They're inside a temple and it's safe. And men used to sit in the back or even stand in the back. You know why they stand? Because they would get out. I remember my church, our church here in the local place where I was born. It had a bunch of doors, right, in the back. Anyone could sneak, and that's what most men would do. They would sneak outside for a talk, and while the wife stayed inside, and smoke a cigarette or something outside. And the same goes for every other ceremony, like especially um, the cemetery part. Enterrement. I don't even say that in English. Enterrement, cemetery. Men just, briefly go about and bye bye, say hello. But it's more women that stay for a long time and they really enjoy this ritual and ceremony. And a lot of people say, oh no, but there's a Abrahamic religion that is actually more patriarchal. No, it's not. It's not patriarchal at all. Uh, this Abrahamic religion from the Middle East. There's this woman who escaped the Middle East and went to live in Canada, and she wrote a book about it, but I forgot to take notes because I wanted to buy that book. But now I don't know if I will ever find this author again. But she escaped the Middle East and she wrote, "It was my mother that reinforced the religion." You see, inside closed doors in the Middle East, women are overlords. And she said, "It was my mother that reinforced the religion, the culture." And when outside, you only see men, doing their thing. But once they go in, they are on a leash. Again, what I said before, the hot fire is women's temple. They are the overlords in there. That's why it's a matriarchy. Ever since we became sedentary, it became a matriarchy. When we were nomad, it wasn't a matriarchy, it was a patriarchy because we weren't settled. So in the Middle East, women have their men on a leash. It's them. And she said it was my mother who was the most ruthless into hammering the religion. How should I treat men? Everything. She hammered down, and she escaped because of that. It wasn't because of the father, it was because of the mother. And she wrote a book about it, trying to explain it. But everybody, distorts these concepts and say, "Oh no, it's a patriarchy. Look how they treat women, blah, blah, blah. Look at how they hide their skin and everything." It's out of their own choice, it seems. It's reinforced. I don't know. Law and order is also a feminist thing. Only feminated men, go to law. Feminated weak men. Eventually, we became sedentary, and laws and rules and regulations have to come up. And people who reinforce this was for the protection of women. Yes, because men, they don't need protection. They can fence for themselves. They could protect with their fists or with weapons. They didn't need protection at all. If a psychopath wanted to do you any harm, you just defend yourself. But women couldn't do that, so they came up with this concept of laws. It's also a feminist concept. That's how, they also fight. Like I said, politicians, they fight by persecuting their opponents using the law. One of the most scrutinized, politics opponent in the world was the Orange Man. He was the most scrutinized and persecuted, what, with the law, even though he had, everybody, his statue, a millionaire. Of course, there were going to be some resentful women that would come after him, or some deals. I mean, they came after him with anything they could, but with using the law, but couldn't pin him down. There was nothing. On the contrary, on their side, there was a lot which actually needed a presidential pardon to get rid of it. You know what I'm saying, right? So I've been talking for 30 minutes. If I had notes and didn't go on tangents, this was going to be a lot faster. So another thing that happens in matriarchy is that, matriarchies, is that man's word is not good enough. And for instance, when they talk about wife beaters and rapists and physical aggression in marriage, they always say men are the worst. But there's a small problem in there. It's because men don't report crimes. You see, men face things, men take in, men face adversities. They don't go and start crying about it. And they hate to make these things public. What kind of a man would go to the police? Yo, my wife beats me. Everybody would probably start laughing. Men are afraid of being ridiculed or being seen as a weak and feeble man who gets, beaten by his wife, so, or raped by his wife, or cheated on, because chances are women cheat a lot more than men, especially since the invention of the contraception pill. nowadays. There's more of a chance that women will marry safety, someone with good salary, and then they have sex with a boyfriend, you know, and have his children. And that's why, um, you know, DNA tests should be mandatory nowadays because everybody is. Anyway, in France, they banned DNA testing for children. They banned this. So you see, in France is really chronic infidelity. But anyway, um, where was I? Yeah, men don't report. That's why their statistics are all wrong. Their statistics are all wrong. There's more violence. Women, let's just say, women are more capable of violence, and there's a proof that it's irrefutable. You see, whenever they choose to off, you know, if they get pregnant, they will willingly off, you know, this fetus or whatever you want to call it, without men's consent. Most men actually want. This is a natural thing. I mean, some people don't even see it. You know, in the natural world, if the female, I mean, I have rabbits and stuff, and you know, when rabbits miss, they don't have enough protein, they eat their own kids for protein. And this goes for every predator out there. And in some cases, you know, like in our case, women need 100% the protection of a man. And when they deliver, and if there's not a man present, or if there's a weak man present, you know, it's not considered a man. But if there's a weak man present or not a man present, they will choose to abandon. You can see also this in sheep. You can see this in sheep when or other animals when they abandon their newborns because they don't have nutrients to feed them. So nature kind of chooses the mother over the newborn because mother will grow stronger eventually, and once all conditions are there, they can have their children, right? But when the conditions are not met, women, you know, abandon or off their offspring. It's just a natural thing. And nowadays there's so much weak men about when women get pregnant, they're like, I'm not ready. That's what they think. I'm not ready because they're not in the presence of a strong man. Besides, the contraception pill kind of messes up with your hormones and your perceptions. So lots of divorces and all of this confusion that's happening is because you are having relationships with people you shouldn't be with. That's why there's so much divorces and people offing their offspring, you know, and stuff like that, because you're not with the correct person. So I don't know. Sometimes there's more information just coming in. I don't know if I'm going to continue this. I've been talking for 33 minutes. I'm going to shut up now. I don't know if this video is going to stay or not. Hope at least one person gets to listen to it. Because sometimes talking about these things, you know, triggers. And talking about the truth is one of the most. I mean, I'm not considering myself to be, you know, uh, the stuff of truth. You know, no. I'm just talking here and what seems, you know, logic to me. So, all right. Tell me what you guys think.